7th IEEE webinar. Today's webinar will be on the topic 2D game development. I am Aish Bhardwaj and I'll be the moderator for today. Some rules. Try not to create any disturbances. Please check that your mic is off. If you have any doubts, type in the chat and Siddharth will get back to you. Okay, so the speaker today will be Siddharth Saxena. He's a very good game developer that I have worked with personally. He has attended 5 game jams, out of which in the BIOG he actually got the 15th best game in the whole country. Okay, so now I'll let Siddharth take this stage.
Okay, thank you for the amazing intro. So, how many people actually have Unity set up on their systems? Just want to get an idea. I'm gonna open up the chat. Okay. Even if you don't, I think what I want you guys to focus on today is just try to take notes and understand whatever concepts that we cover, right? Because those are the main things for today. Because even I'm not going to be making a very what to say, a very technical or sort of hardcore coding sort of a webinar. So let's start. If anyone hasn't set up Unity, I'll just quickly show you how do you actually install. So you fire up Unity Hub, you go on add, you select the version you want. Today I think we'll be working on Unity 2019 point something. You select the modules that you need. For today I asked everyone to install the Windows and the WebGL module, because if we can finish the game in time, I'll also teach you guys how to upload the game on a web platform where everybody can play. And then you just click done and the engine will start downloading. So I'll just create a new project. So this is the project creation window. So we're going to select the 2D template because we're going to be making a 2D game. It's not very complicated what selecting template does. It's basically just sets up a few things already for us, like the camera and a few more settings. So we don't have to worry about them switching them later. Just gonna what to say. Okay, just gonna give it a name. Webinar. We're going to be making a platformer, which is basically a game. If I have to give you an example, like Mario. So I'm going to say next one. Yeah. So this is what you're going to see the first time you open up Unity. Right. So I'll just quickly explain what the things that we see. This is our scene view. This is where we'll be creating our whole game. This is where the game will be. And this is our game view. This is how actually our game will look like when we try to play it on a system. This is the toolbar. It basically has the few tools that we need. I'll quickly explain them as in go we use them. This is the project hierarchy. This is where all the elements that are currently in your game will be listed out. And this is your project window, which is basically the whole structure of the folder structure of your game, where your files are actually stored, the way to access them. So to go over a few basic concepts of Unity, so everything in a scene is called a game object. Anything you put in a scene here is called a game object. And I'll just create an empty game object here by clicking and creating empty game object. As you can see, if you click W, you will get the move tools, or if not, you can go up and select them from here. There are different set of tools here. They have a move tool, you have a rotate tool, you have a scaling tool, and you have a rect tool, but this is for 2D elements. I'll show you that later. So currently, I want to just explain to you what a game object is basically. Everything that is in a scene, everything and anything that is in a scene is called a game object. Game objects have components. Components define the behavior of the game object. So right now this is an empty game object and the components are displayed right on the right side. This is called the inspector window. This whole is called the inspector window. This is where the components of a game object are listed down. So right now, as you can see, it only has a transform component. So transform component is basically a component which defines the position, rotation, and scale of an object. Okay, the scale of an object, right? So all game objects have a few preset components and a few preset settings that all game objects have. They like all game objects will have a name, they'll have a tag, they'll have a layer, and they'll have a transform component attached to them. This is given for all game objects that you create in the game, right? So as you can see in the hierarchy, there are two objects right now. It's an empty game object that we just created by clicking right click and going for create empty, and the main camera. The main camera is what actually renders your game. Whatever the main camera sees is our game view. Okay. So as you can see, the main camera has three components actually. It like the empty game object has a transform component, and then it has a camera component, and it has an audio listener component. So if you want to change up the view settings of our game and how the camera, how much view, what the field of view that we want, how much area do you want to cover, everything that you can directly change from the main camera from the settings here. Right now the scene is empty, so it really won't affect if I change any settings. So let's start with that. Anybody have any questions right now? So right now the background color of the main camera is set to blue. I'm just gonna change that. I'm not going to be importing any art assets today because I really want you guys to focus on Unity and the capabilities of Unity. So we're gonna try and create everything that we make from inside Unity itself, right? So let's start our game. So firstly, let's try to make our main player. So I'm gonna create an empty folder. I'm gonna call it sprites. The sprites are basically images, and I really don't want to cover anything more than that. Just imagine that they're images, and you are able to import those images to your game. So Unity already has a list of preset sprites you can create. You can go to you can right click here in the project window. You can go to create. You can go to sprites, and I'm going to select a square sprite here. I'm just going to let it be called square. So if you see, if I drag this sprite from here to the project hierarchy or the scene view, you can see it now in the scene view, right? So now it's part of our game. So now this is also a game object. This game object has a transform component and a sprite render component. This sprite render, I think, just as the name goes, it's rendering the sprite that we just created onto the scene. So I'm gonna change its color to this black. Yeah. Let's give our player some eyes. So I think I'll just cover the tools once again. The shortcut for these tools are W is for the move tool, E is for the rotate tool, R is for the scaling tool, and T is for the rect transform tool. This is for mostly for 2D elements, because now as you can see, the difference between the scaling one and T is that the scale tool has 3 axes, X, Y, and Z, where I can scale the object in. But the rect transform only is concerned with 2 axes because it's solely made for 2D elements. So I'm gonna drag this here, scale it down. And let's give it a smile as well. That's good. So now we have a main player. Now you see, these are 3 different game objects, right? This is the base of the player, this is the eye of the player, and this is the mouth of the player. But essentially, when we move these objects, they're not going to move together. But we want them to move together. So how do we do that? So I'm going to select the eye and the smile that I just made, and I'm going to drag them up to the square. So what this does is it parents them to this object. Now the base of the player is the parent, and the two more game objects that we created are its children. So whenever I move the parent, sorry, the child moves along with the parent. So this is how you combine multiple game objects, and if you need to, and this is basically the parent and the child policy of Unity. So I'm just gonna rename these because Square is like very generic. I'm gonna call this player. I'm gonna call this one I. I'm gonna call this one small. Right. So now that we have a player, let's now we want him to move, right? So the first thing that I want to discuss that Unity has its own physics engine. Anything that will move in Unity will move according to the physics engine. So, and if you want any of the game objects that you create to respond to the engine to be able to follow physics or or follow or do anything related to physics in your game, you need to add a rigid body to them. So a rigid body is also a component, and like I said, components define the behavior of a game object. So I'm gonna go on add component. I'm gonna select rigid body 2D. So what this does is it allows me to select the mass of the object. It allows me to how gravity select how gravity affects the object, and some more constraints like how in which position do I want it to move, or do I want it to free its rotation in any place. So let's see what happens right now. So if I play the scene, firstly the eye and the smile disappeared, and secondly the player fell down because of gravity. So now let's figure out why the eye and the smile disappeared. So now we're making a 2D game, right? So everything is two-dimensional. Like you're looking at on the front view. So how do you decide that what comes before?
Sid. Um, okay, so be patient. I'll contact him. Um, his net is currently gone for right now. We'll try to get back fast. Meanwhile, try to make the things that he has suggested you. Open your Unity and work what he has told you.
Hello everyone, I request you all to wait for the moment as the technical glitches will be sorted out soon. So thank you everyone for your patience. Kindly do not leave because the session will be resumed soon. I really hope that we all are on the same page.
Sorry guys, my net dropped. Sorry, I'm just gonna set up once again.
Welcome back.
Can everybody see my screen now?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay. So what we were doing, we had created a player, and now we had created a platform for which the player to basically fall on and move on. Right. So now let's see what happens. The platform falls, but it is not basically
Hello.
collide with the platform. Yeah.
Excuse me, Mr. Bhai.
Yep.
We cannot hear you. Your voice is breaking.
Okay. Wait. Let's try to. I don't know. Hello. How about now?
It's coming out perfectly, sir.
Also, your screen is not being shared. I cannot see it.
The screen is visible, but the video you are showing, it's coming out as fuzzy. Everything is all right otherwise.
Okay. I
Yes,
just
you are not audible too.
switched to a different network. So how about now?
I think, Siddharth, I think your internet is fine because I have 100 Mbps speed right now and I can see it. I think the other people need to check their internet as well.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay. So how about now? I just switched to a different network. So I think it should be fine now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's perfect.
So, cool. So now we have an object on which physics is being applied. We have a platform, and now what we need is both of these things to basically collide with each other, which means that to recognize that they are different surfaces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply add a box collider here. Box collider is basically a component which allows us to define the boundaries of our object, and for it to, if you can see the green square right here, this is what the box collider is basically. And I'm also going to add a box collider on the platform. So now both of these are surfaces. The Unity recognizes them as surfaces which can collide with each other. So I'm gonna play the scene now. So as you can see, the player is now balanced upon the platform. The platform doesn't have a rigid body, so gravity doesn't affect it. It only has a box collider, so it's just a simple surface floating in space. So now what we need is for our player to move. For that, we're going to do some scripting. So I'm hoping that you guys have some background in programming. Even if you don't, I'm gonna try and explain everything as I go, but I'm not sure how much I can due to the time. Okay, I have to explain this first. So I just created an empty folder by the name of scripts. I'm gonna right click here. I'm gonna go on create. I'm gonna create a new C# script. I'm gonna call it player controller. Okay. Right. So first let's understand what we need to do. So we are going to be making a platformer. So our controls are going to be moving right, left, and jumping. Okay. So how do we actually move? So we need to take the direction from the player, in which direction the player wants to move, right? And we need to give speed to the character in that direction, which means we need to change the character's velocity. So that deals with physics. So that means we need to access the rigid body component of this game object. the player game object that we created, the rigid body component that we attached to it. Like I told you, anything that has to deal with physics in Unity will be handled using the rigid body component. So I'm just gonna go in the script that firstly I'm gonna attach this empty script to the player game object. Scripts are basically user defined components. Like I said, components define the behavior of a game object. So we can write scripts and attach them as components to game objects so that we can alter their behavior. So I'm gonna go in the player controller. So the first thing that we decided is that we're going to need the rigid body component of the player. So I'm gonna declare a variable here by the name. I'm gonna go public. It's gonna be of the type rigid body 2D because that's the component we need, and I'm gonna call it player rigid body. So if you can see, if I go to the scene right now and I wait for the script to compile, there is a field by the name of player rigid body exposed in the editor. Why is this exposed in the editor? Because I declared the variable with the access of public. So whichever variable has a public access will be exposed in the editor. This doesn't work for all types of objects, but it works for most of them. And I think for right now, it's gonna work for whatever you guys are gonna try. So I'm just gonna drag this rigid body component to this place right here. So what has happened right now is the player controller script now has a reference to the rigid body component, which means if we want, we can access the rigid body the attributes of the rigid body component and change them as we want. So I'm gonna write some code right now and then I'll explain as what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the presentation that I've made. So Unity has a lot of inbuilt functions. Okay, so first I'm just gonna go over. This is what we have already gone over. Like what is a game object? Game objects are fundamental objects in Unity that represent everything that is in the scene, right? And components are basically you can think of them as attributes of the game object. These are the properties which define the behavior of the game object. So now what we're going to do is now we're going into scripting. So first I want to tell you about some inbuilt functions that are in Unity already. So these are some of the inbuilt functions of Unity. This is awake. Awake is a function which is called when the scene is loaded. So all the scripts that are in the scene will call their awake function as soon as the scene is loaded. On enable is called whenever an object is enabled. Start function is called once per script. Now these two functions are very important, update and fixed update. Update is a function where most of our handling happens. It's the function which is called every frame. So it's called around 200 times every second. So calculations like how much the player needs to jump and if where the player needs to go and if it's colliding with anything, if it's shooting anything, things that need very rapid response, we handle in update. Fixed update is where we handle the physics part of the game because it's the functionality is similar to update, but it's called less times. It's called 50 times every second. So if you're doing something simple as just moving the player left and right, you don't need it to be, you don't need to be it to be updated 200 times every second. I mean, that's just overkill. It's gonna take up a lot of processing power that and not have any different effects than it's gonna have in the fixed update. So what we're going to do, we're going to use the fixed update function for the player controller here. I'm gonna just declare it here. So first I'm just gonna show you guys how this works. So I'm gonna debug log here. So what debug log does is it prints messages in your console window. I'll show where the console window is. So I'm just gonna make it. So this is a console window. This is where all our debug logs and debugs are gonna be printed out. So if I play the scene right now, you can see even just a few seconds how many times this line was printed. So this is how basically fixed update works. It keeps updating every it runs around 50 times every second. So this is where we are going to handle our movement code. It's a good practice to always use fixed update for all your physics calculations, because if you do it in update, it's just, in my opinion, it's just overkill. It will work most of the time, but still I would prefer you should go for fixed update over it. So, okay, the question here is how do we take the input from the player, right? For that, there's an input class in Unity. So I'm gonna do input dot get access. I'm gonna do get access raw. I'm gonna select horizontal. So what this line is going to do, it's gonna get the value of the horizontal axis, which is basically left, right, which is the arrow keys on your keyboard, whichever you're pressing, and it's gonna store their value in this variable. This value essentially ranges from -1 to 1, so just gonna give us the direction on which the player is moving. I'm just I know this can be a bit confusing, so I'm just gonna show where we are actually getting this from. So I'm gonna go and edit and project settings. This is where this is the input class that we are accessing right here, right? These are the fields. So if I expand the axis here, you can see in the horizontal axis what we have. So the horizontal axis, this is the axis that we're accessing in the script right now. So this is negative button left, a positive button right, alternative negative button. So what this basically means is that you can move left, right using the arrow keys, and you can move left, right using A and D as well. So now we have the input from the player. Now what we need is to assign the player game object a velocity corresponding to the movement that the user is making. So I'm just also going to declare another variable here by the name of public float speed. This is basically the speed of the player, and because movement is only going to give us the direction in which the player is moving, and speed is basically how fast the player is going to move. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go player rigid body. This is again the rigid body component of the player. Velocity. Now velocity accepts a vector2 type of variable, and this velocity is same as the physics velocity that we all read about. It's just speed and direction. So I'm gonna declare a new vector2. Vector2 is just assume two values in the x and y axis. That's what it is. So I'm gonna do movement. This is the direction of the player he's moving in, into speed, the speed at which we want the player to move. And then for the velocity in the y-axis, I'm just gonna leave it as it is. I'm gonna go player rigid body dot velocity dot y. So this means that I'm not concerned with the velocity in the y-axis, and whatever it was initially before this, I'm just gonna leave it at that. So let's go back to our scene. Now, as you can see, the speed variable is also exposed in the editor because we declared it by the public access. So let's try, how much you guys want to try? Let's try 10. So as you can see, now we are able to move our player. I'm also gonna change up its mass and things like that because we want it to actually, oh, okay. Okay, so one more thing. Play mode is basically for testing. So right now I can change anything that I want. I can like increase the speed. But as soon as I exit the play mode, none of these fields will be retained because the play mode is essentially for testing. Okay. So whatever changes that you need to do outside the play mode, and then you have to go inside the play mode to test them. So let's give our player some mass. I'm gonna change its mass to 10. I'm gonna change the gravity scale to 10. And I'm gonna freeze its rotation in the z-axis. The rotation in z-axis is basically this rotation. I don't want the player to rotate in this axis. I just want him to go left, right, and up. Okay. Anybody have any questions up until now? I'll probably get the notification, right, if anybody types anything else.
There's a thing though. Right now, I think the admin has set the chat settings to team only. So none of the attendees can actually put any questions in the chat.
Yeah, right. So can you actually like use the mic and if you have a doubt? That's
All right, so yeah, we can do that. Like, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. But why the chat is off? I mean, I just want to ask that. I'm very curious.
That's the admin.
Okay. Okay, so now a player is able to move, right? I'm just gonna drag this down to the ground level. So now as you can see, we can move right and left, but the player is always facing right. So we want the player to look in the direction that he's moving in, right? So for that, like I told you, our game object right now is comprised of multiple game objects. The player game object is comprised of multiple game objects. If it was a single sprite and it was a whole sprite in itself, I could have used the sprite renderer component. It has a field of flip, and we could have used that field to just flip the player left and right through our scripting, but we don't have that. So what we're going to do is we're going to invert the scale in the x-axis. So what happens if I change this to -1? The player is facing left. If I change it back to 1, it's facing right again. So now what we need to do is we need our player controller script to access the transform component and change the scale of the player so that it changes with the direction the player is moving in. So there are many ways to do this. We can declare a variable of the transform type like we did with the rigid body, but we don't actually need to do that because like I told you initially, all game objects have a transform component. So what Unity does basically is it already gives us a variable right here. It gives us a field right here by the name of transform, and this directly accesses the transform component of the game object. So let's declare a function here by the name player flip. We're going to use this function to flip the player. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to store the current scale of the player. As you can see here, the scale is a vector3 value because it has an x, y, and z. So that's why I'm declaring a vector3 variable here. I'm going to go transform dot local scale. Why I did local scale is because I'm going to explain something really quick here. See, now that I and Smile are children of the player game object, their scale is always going to be in respect to the parent. Okay, now just focus here on the scale value. If I drag I out of the player game object, okay, the position changed. Probably just okay. Oh yeah, you can see the transform game object gets updated. The position is changing, but actually it stays right where it was initially. That's because the whole transform values are always going to be in respect to its parent here. That is why we are going for local scale so that we get the actual real-time value that we need to change. So I'm going to store the local scale value in the player scale variable, and now I'm going to change it. So we needed to invert the value of the x-axis, right? So I'm just going to multiply it by -1. And now I'm going to assign the new player scale that we just created to the local scale of the transform component. So what we've done here, basically, we have took up the scale of what was initially of the player game object. We've inverted it in the x-axis, and then we have assigned it back to the transform component, so it reflects back in the game. So this is the function to flip the player, but when do we call it? Okay, so let's create a check which tells us the direction if the player is facing it. So I'm gonna create a boolean here. I'm gonna call it facing right. And initially I'm going to set it to true. because as you can see, the player is facing right initially. So in the fixed update, I'm going to write a condition. I'm going to say if movement remember is the direction in which we are moving it. If movement is greater than 0, this means if I'm moving right and facing right is false, which means the player is not facing right, then we want to flip the player. And similarly, I'm going to do an else if here. I'm going to go movement is less than 0, which means if you're moving to the left, but we're facing right. In that case as well, we want the player to flip. Okay, so let's try this out. Oh, wait. This is we forgot to we just made a boolean of facing right and we checked its value, but we're not actually changing the value of the facing right anywhere. So it's always true. So according to the script, the player is always facing right. So what we're going to do in the player flip function, we're just going to do facing right is equal to inverse of facing right. This is the not operator, which basically just means invert. Same as in mathematics, if it's true, turn it to false. If it was false, turn it to true. So now let's try it. Now as you can see, we can move in both direction and the player changes turns the direction it's moving in. Any questions till now? Can we move on? Okay. So now we want our player to jump. This is gonna be a bit complicated, but I really want you guys to understand this method because this is really the best method to do this. So I already have, I already prepped the whole project for this session. So I'm just gonna go to the script that I've already made. I'm gonna copy these values and I'm gonna explain to you as and when. Okay, so yeah. So you don't need to worry about everything right now. But first, let's just think about jump force. This is the force we want our player to jump with. And what is jumping? Jumping is basically velocity in the up direction, right? So if even right now, if I go, let's do this one in an update just so we understand, because we don't want any sort of delays even by chance in jumping, because that is going to be the core mechanic of our game. The player is going to be jumping over obstacles, is going to be jumping over enemies, hopefully, things like that. So if I do if input dot get key, key code is basically a enum which has the key code for all the available keys. So I'm gonna go input dot get key code dot space, which basically means if the player presses space on his keyboard, give the player velocity in the up direction. So go vector2 dot up into jump force. So what this says is if I press space, give it velocity in the up direction, which is in the, like we're making a 2D game, right? So we're only concerned with two axes, X and Y. So give it a velocity of something into jump force. So I'm gonna set the jump force to, let's say 20 here. And let's try it out. So as you can see, a player can jump now. But what the issue is that he can jump infinitely. Okay. And we don't want that. We want the player to jump only when he's on the ground, right? So what we're going to do is, and this is probably the most complicated piece of code that we're going to write in this session. We're going to, through scripting, we're going to create a small circle at the location of our choice, and we're going to see if that circle collides with the ground. And we're going to see that in fixed update. That means we're going to check that on 50 times every second, so that we always have the most up-to-date value. Okay, so For that, what I've actually done is I've taken a public transform called ground check. So this is the position where, sorry, I haven't, okay. So I've taken a public transform called ground check. So this is the position where we'll be drawing the circle. I've taken a circle radius. This is the radius of the circle that we will be drawing. I've taken and I've also created a Boolean variable called isGrounded. This is the Boolean variable that will be updating according to the values that we get from the circle. And there is a layer mask called WhatIsGround. I'm going to explain its purpose just a few moments now. So I'm going to write isGrounded, which is the Boolean variable, is equal to, and you don't need to like worry about this function that much. It's a inbuilt function of Unity. I'm going to say overlap circle. It allows us to create a circle and checks if that circle is colliding with anything or not. So I'm going to do ground check dot position comma circle radius. So what is happening right now is that Unity creates a circle at this position of this radius, and if that circle is colliding with anything, it returns true. So isGrounded is true, but we only want it to work on, we only want the circle to collide with the ground layer, right? Because if we just have a generic check, then it won't make any sense. It will collide with all the objects that have colliders in the scene. So that is why we have a layer mask. So I'm going to explain how this is going to work. I'm just going to write the layer mask here. This is WhatIsGround. Okay. So if we go back to the scene. So the first thing that we discussed is that all game objects have tags and layers, which basically tells which layer this object belongs to. So I'm going to go to the platform and I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call it ground. I'm going to change the layer of the platform to ground. I'm going to go back to the player game object. So now what we need is a ground check transform state. So let's zoom in on our player. So like in this photo as well, we want to create this small circle somewhere where the feet of our player would be, right? Basically the point he's touching the ground with. So I'm going to create an empty game object. I'm going to change the gizmo. The gizmo is just the icon of a game object, and it is only visible in the scene. It's not visible in the game. It's solely for the purpose of your development and ease. So I'm going to select a different icon, a circle icon here, so that you guys. So what we're trying to do, we're going to create a circle right here through script, and we're going to check 50 times every second if it's colliding with the ground or not. Okay. So I'm going to drag this game object here. So what I did is I took the transform component of this game object, which has the position, right? And I referenced it to the player controller. So now the player controller knows the ground check game objects transform component. We're gonna also rename this. We'll just call it ground check. Now let's decide what the radius of a circle should be. So the scale of a player is in the x-axis is 1, so I think I'm gonna go with the radius of 0.5. Right? So we're gonna change the code a little bit. So now isGrounded will be true if the player is on ground, which means if this circle is colliding with the ground, and it will only check collisions with the ground because we assigned a layer mask. We told it that which object layer it needs to collide with. So in this if condition, which was a jump, I'm just going to change this, and I'm going to add another variable isGrounded, which means if the player presses space and the player is on the ground, then only it should jump. So let's go back and see if we assigned all the values we have. Let's try it. So now as you can see, the infinite jump is gone. Right, so now our player can move around and jump. So let's try to create a small level. Anybody have any questions right now? Okay, so the platform is basically the surface, right, on which the player lands and can move about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prefab this. So what are prefabs? Prefabs are basically game objects that you're going to reuse, and they all have the same attribute. Like if I create duplicates of this platform right here, that is also fine. But what the prefab is going to allow me to do is, if I want to change all the platforms in my game at once, I can change it through the prefab. I'm going to show you how. So first I'm going to prefab this. So now you see it's turned blue and we have a sort of a game object copy in our project window. I created an empty folder called prefabs, and that is where I put this platform prefab. So let's try to make a small level now. I'm just going to duplicate this. Put here. Yeah. Use the size. So now we have 3 platforms that we can move about in. So let's try it out. So as you can see, the player right now moves outside of a game window because the camera is in one place and it's only visible, and the only part visible of the game is this. It's only watching this space, right? The camera can be, you can take a look at the camera rig by this white window here. This is what the camera is looking at, and that is what is being rendered in the game window. So what we want is the camera to follow the player. So for this we can write a script, but actually I want to do something other than that. Unity has a very nice inbuilt functionality package, and I think I also wanted to show you guys how to import new packages. So we're gonna go to Window and we're gonna select Package Manager. Oh wait, I also have to change one thing more. Like I told you initially that we are going to be trying to deploy this this game on the online. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Build Settings. I'm going to go File, Build Settings, and I'm going to switch the platform to WebGL. WebGL basically churns out HTML5 builds, so you can very easily deploy them on your own websites, or I'm going to tell you another website where you can deploy it for everybody to play. So I'm going to switch platform. It's going to take some time, not that much I think. So, oh, it's done. Cool. Okay. So nothing here changes. It's only that when we are going to build the project in the end, it's going to build as a WebGL project. So now we want the camera to follow the player. So I'm going to go on Package Manager and I'm going to import a package by the name of Cinemachine. It's loading the packages. It'll take some time. Yeah. So this is the package that we want to import. This is a package by Unity, and this was essentially for people who want to make movies inside of Unity. It gives out a lot of camera controls and different types of attributes and behavior stuff you can do with cameras. If any artist like wants to explore this would be a really nice package for them. You can like do crazy stuff with this. For us, we're just gonna use the simple 2D follow camera here. Just wait for it to import. Okay. So now we've imported this package. Still importing this. So if you can see the Cinemachine is now up here, right? It's an option like I can select. So I'm gonna go to Cinemachine and I'm gonna create a 2D camera. So what it does is it creates a virtual camera. Okay. And now if I go to the main camera, you can see it has a simple script of Cinemachine Brain, which means that this virtual camera is affecting the main camera. So this virtual camera basically defines behaviors, and you can see we already have a field by the name of follow, which accepts a variable of transform, and transform is, like I said, is all game objects have the transform component. So we're just going to take our player game object and we're going to drag it here. So even if I play the scene right now, we have a very smooth sort of camera follow with the player, right? So I'm not going to dwell a lot into this. So now what we have is a player that can move around, jump around, and we have a camera that is following the player. So now let's keep creating a level. So now I have almost 4 platforms, and I said that I wanted to show you guys what the benefit of using prefabs is. We prefab the platform game object. Does anybody have a question? Somebody is off mute for us. Okay. So now I'm going to show you how prefabs are actually beneficial. So if I go here, I'm going to edit this single prefab. This is the prefab editing window. You can see a small arrow here. So I'm going to click on it. And I just wanted to add sort of a shadow to this. So as you can see, the order in layer for the platform is 0. I'm just going to change this to 2 because I want to create a shadow. I'm just gonna duplicate this. I'm gonna drag it right here. I'm gonna give it an order of layer 1, and I think most of you know that there is an RGB value, but there's also an alpha channel, which basically means how opaque or transparent your object is. So we're just gonna try to add. We're gonna decrease the opacity to give an illusion of sort of a shadow of the platform. I think that's good. Yeah. So I added a shadow to one platform in my game, right? I added a shadow to one platform in my game, but it is automatically reflected in all the platforms because they're all prefabs, reference to one prefab. Okay. So whatever changes that you do to a single prefab, they will all be reflected throughout the game. So now, as you can see, all the platforms have shadows, and we just needed to add it to one single one of them. This is very useful in when creating things that you're going to use multiple times in your game, like bullets, like ammo, like collectibles. So things like that are going to be repeating in your game a lot. So you can always prefab them. So you don't have to worry about going again and again and changing every single game object. So I want to explore the physics of Unity a little bit more. So let's try to create a small puzzle. Okay. So how about we create a sort of a seesaw thing? I'm going to create a seesaw thing. Okay. So I'm going to create another sprite. I'm going to call it Is everybody understanding, or am I going too fast or too slow? Anything? Any feedback at all?
Yes, we are understanding.
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Surinder.
Okay, thank you very much. Very matching voices. Okay. So let's try to create a platform. Okay, so you know what? I'm just gonna drag another one of the square sprites for this. And turn into black. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to create a seesaw of sorts, on which we can have a small puzzle where the player has to drop a weight to get to the next platform. I'm going to reduce the size of this platform. So, like I told you, so what all does a seesaw need? Firstly, we need the player to be able to walk on this, right? So I'm gonna add a box collider 2D to it. Then a seesaw is obviously we need it to respond to physics, right? We need to respond to weight and things like that. So I'm gonna add a rigid body 2D to it. I'm gonna keep the gravity scale consistent in my game, so I'm gonna change this to 10. I'm gonna make the seesaw a bit heavier. Let's go for 100 and see what happens if we play the game right now. Oh, okay. So you see that seesaw falls off because probably we didn't manage the zero of it. Let's try. I feel like perfectly balanced. I'm gonna move the circle to, okay, I'm gonna move it to 25. I'm also gonna move the square to 25. Not alter the scale here. Okay. Let's see if it balances now or not. It should, I think. Yes. The seesaw is balanced, but so what happens when a player goes in? Yes, this. So if we don't want the seesaw to fall, I'm just gonna freeze the position of the seesaw in the x-axis. That means we don't want it to go as a whole object in the left or right direction. We just want it to go up and down. Right. We want it to rotate. We don't want it to fall down. So let's try it now. Okay. Now the player falls down, but the seesaw doesn't. So that's cool. So I'm gonna put a platform. So what is the max value of a seesaw? I didn't even see that. I need to see that. Yeah, so somewhere. You can also pause your in-game. When you're in-game, if you need to, check out values, you need to test something out. So I'm gonna move this. This is where our platform should be, right? This is the ideal position for the platform. So the player cannot get to it without actually balancing the seesaw. So where is this? This is minus 0.17 and 31.5 in the x-axis. Okay. So I'm just gonna get out of play mode now. I'm gonna input the values we just saw. 7, right? I'm just gonna test once that if the player can get to it. Okay, you can't even jump off the seesaw because we didn't change the layer of the platform. So I'm just gonna, okay, just gonna come on this. So as you can see, this has the layer of default. So we all needed to change to the layer of ground. Now the player can jump off it if it wants to. And let's create something. So how about this? Okay. So what we want is the player to drop a small weight from this position down on this seesaw, and then he can move forward. So let's drag a square. I'm gonna drag it right here. Let's add a box collider to it because we want it to collide with other things, and let's add a rigid body to it because obviously we want it to have weight. So now that physics is being applied to it, I think you guys can imagine, as soon as we drop this thing on the seesaw, it's gonna fall down again and we're gonna get stuck here. So I'm just gonna add some small obstructions at the end of the seesaw. Just to stop when the square falls down, and this one is just for aesthetics. Okay, this is okay. Also, I'm gonna parent all these components that we just created to the game object. I'm gonna call this game object seesaw. And what is a circle? This is what should we call it? We're gonna call it weight because I'm being an imaginator right now. I'm gonna drag these squares and I'm gonna parent them to seesaw. So this is the whole seesaw object now. I'm just gonna play once and see if anything is in balance or not. Okay. Why do? Oh, we duplicated. See, what I did was I duplicated the seesaw game object. So now my obstructions also have rigid body components, which I don't want them to have. So I'm just gonna remove these components. We just want colliders so that they can stop whatever we throw on them. So we also need, okay, so we need the seesaw to be heavier than the player so that it can keep the seesaw down while we go to the next platform. So the weight of the player was, I think the mass of the player was 40, right? It's 40. So I'm gonna give this weight something like, I'm gonna call it 60. So now you see, we have a small puzzle. And this is entirely using Unity. We haven't done a single code or scripting for this. But I really like now want to see if we can like launch this weight by jumping. Just as like I'm just gonna increase the mass like unrealistically. Wow, now it's stuck. Okay. Yeah, now it's stuck. That's good game design. So now we have a small level. So anybody has any questions up until now? Okay. So what is happening right now is there is no end to a game whatsoever. Like even if there is no game over state, there is no game win state. So if I fall down from here, I just keep falling infinitely, right? And we don't want that. We want, let's say, we want the player to die and show a game over screen if he falls down on the platform. So I'm gonna create a empty game object. I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna put it on 0, 0, 0. I'm gonna move it down from there, and I'm gonna give it a box collider 2D. I'm gonna increase the scale so that it covers my entire level. So wherever I fall, I'm gonna fall on this collider. And now what we're going to do, what we want is that, so now the player won't fall infinitely at least. So, oh, yeah, now the player is stuck on this collider, right? So what do you want when this happens? When the player collides with this game object, we want to show a game over screen. So let's first make a game over screen. So I'm just gonna open up Paint. And I'm not using any assets or any complicated stuff because I really wanted you guys to show you guys that how much you can actually do from just inside Unity. What is like a losing color? Anybody has any suggestions? Like this maroon thing. Like you lost. What color signifies that the most?
Red. Green for winning.
Okay. Thanks. So let's just type in the most horrible handwriting that we can. Game over. Okay. And select white. That is not an O. Okay. This is actually pretty close to my real handwriting. So we're also gonna add a message right here. We're gonna say press R to restart. So this is basically press R to restart the game. Bold. There is no reason why I also didn't draw this. Just because. Okay, so now we have a game over screen. So we're gonna save this.
I think your current one is on the desktop.
Oh yes, thanks. So I'm just gonna go to the sprite folder and I'm gonna call it game over screen. So now we have this game over screen in the scene. So let's drag this. Let's give it a very high order so that it overlaps everything. And we're also gonna scale it so that it fills up the whole camera space. So what we want is, I'm gonna disable this right now to show you guys what you actually want to do. This is going to be disabled throughout the game, but when our player falls down and collides with the basically the catcher we created, let's say we will just call it fall catcher. I'm gonna rename this to fall catcher. Whenever the player collides with the fall catcher, we want to enable the screen. And when the user presses R, we want it to restart the game. Okay. So I'm gonna parent this to the main camera. So it moves along with the camera. So wherever we are, wherever we lose, the game over screen can be enabled right there. I'm also going to create a script. Let's create a script called, let's call it game controller. No, actually, I'm gonna call it fall catcher. I'm gonna assign this script to this collider right here, the fall catcher that we created. Now I'm gonna show you some more inbuilt functions of Unity. I'm gonna go back to my slide. These are some functions that are used to detect collisions in Unity. So right now we have a basic box collider setup. There are two types of colliders, like normal colliders and there are trigger colliders. So if I turn this on, if I turn is trigger on, it becomes a trigger collider. What a trigger collider is, we'll discuss after this. I'll explain it later. But for now, you need to understand this is a normal collider. And this script is assigned to our game object, which has a collider component. So this function on collision enter 2D is going to catch all collisions that happen with that game object, with the box collider 2D component of this game object, because the script is assigned to this game object. So what on collision enter tells us, called when game object collides with another collider. So this is going to give on collision enter 2D is the name of the function, and other is the other collider that which we collided with just now. So we're gonna go on fall catcher.cs. I'm gonna declare the function. So this is going to, so let's just say let's say if other dot transform dot tag, or actually, you know what, I'm gonna get the tag from game object because it's actually game object is equal to player. Okay. Destroy other dot game object. So what I'm saying here is, if this game object, the box collider component of this game object collides with anything else in the scene, and that anything else as a tag of player, destroy the other game object which you just collided with. Okay. Now if I go back to our player right now, the tag of the player is untagged. So I'm just gonna change this to player and we're gonna test this out. So right now what should happen is, if we fall down, our player should get destroyed as soon as it hits the fall catcher. See, now our player gets destroyed. So now what we want is, the player should get destroyed and this screen should be enabled, right? So I'm gonna go back to my screen, the source script. I'm gonna declare another variable. I'm gonna call it public, because I want to drag the game over screen from the scene to the script. I want to attach it that way. I'm gonna call it game object. So game over screen. So destroy the game object and game over screen and enable the game over screen. So the game over screen dot set active true. This is again an inbuilt function used to enable and disable game objects. So we're going to drag the game over screen game object to here. So now what should happen is if we fall down, we should get the game over screen pop-up. Right. So the final thing, press R to restart. So I'm just going to add it here. I'm going to make an update. If input dot get key code dot R. So what we're gonna go and get a new header file. We're gonna say using Unity Engine dot scene management, because we're going to restart the scene. That is what basically means about restarting the game. If you have multiple scenes in your game, you will be restarting. You will be loading the first scene that you have. But right now we just want to restart this scene. We have a single scene game, so we're just gonna try and restart this game scene. Okay, so I'm gonna go scene manager dot load scene. I'm gonna give it a build index of 0. I'm gonna show what build index is basically. So imagine you have multiple scenes in your game, right? So how do you decide which scene comes before what in the final game? So for that we have this scenes in build. Here you can see we only have one scene which is called the sample scene. We're also going to change the name of the scene, and it has an index of 0. So that is what I put here. So what happens is now what should happen is whenever we press R, it should restart the scene and the player should get back into the initial position. So press R, as you can see. So whenever I press R, it restarts the scene. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna also rename the scene because I really don't like the name sample scene. I'm gonna call it main game. Yep. Cool. So now we have a game over. We have movement. We have jump. We have simple puzzles. So how about now we add an enemy? Okay. So let's try to create an enemy. I'm gonna drag a square sprite. I'm gonna change the color to red. I'm gonna drag a circle sprite as well for the eyes. I'm gonna try to make it look as weird as it can. Yeah, I think that is good enough.
2D में एक आँख की वैसे ठीक है.
No, I wanted to look like those whatever the crabs or something. You know, remember in Mario?
Yeah.
We used to like move left and right. Yeah. Okay. And what should we call this? I'm gonna call this Vishruth after my friend. So Vishruth basically means someone who is known throughout the world, and the enemies in this game are very famous apparently. So again, the enemies will be moving, and it will be affected. Physics will be affecting them. So I want to add a rigid body to it. Also, I'm just gonna change the order in layer right now because the eyes are gonna disappear again if we don't. So, oh yeah, you can. I just selected both of them at the same time because I'm only editing one component. So I'm gonna add a rigid body. First I'm gonna add a box collider because we wanted to collide with things. I'm gonna add a rigid body. I'm gonna give it the same mass and gravity scale as the player, just for uniformity. And I'm also gonna, you know what? I'm not gonna stop the rotation. I don't really care if it falls down or anything. It'll be cool. So now we're gonna write the script for the enemy. I'm gonna go and create, and I'm gonna call it enemy controller. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to reuse a lot of stuff that we have already made in the player controller, because we have already written the code for moving left and right, for jumping up and down. But I'm not going to add jump in the enemy. The enemy is only going to move left and right. So let's take this whole thing. Let's pick this up from the player controller. I'm going to just copy it right here. And float movement facing right, public front speed. Cool. Cool. So we don't actually, I don't think we need the movement variable, because we aren't going to be taking the any inputs from the player. So actually I'm gonna declare a vector2 variable called direction. And I'm gonna give it a default value of vector2 dot right. Because right. So let's go into fixed update. So we want, let's just start with the basic stuff. We want our enemy to move around. So I'm gonna give it vector2 player rigid. Oh, I'm also gonna rename this. I'm just gonna go enemy rigid body. So I'm just gonna go enemy rigid body dot velocity is equal to vector2, the direction it's moving in, into the speed that we want it to move with. And again, I'm not, oh wait, so direction is already a vector2, so I don't think we need to do anything else. So I'm just gonna do direction into speed. Cool. So let's see what happens now. I'm gonna drag this enemy controller script, and I'm gonna drag the rigid body component to here, and I'm gonna give it a speed. What's the speed we give to our player? So we gave 10, right? So I'm gonna give it 12 to like create a challenge. So let's see what happens now. I'm gonna drag it down a bit. So as seen as 12 is like, I think, super fast. So as soon as the scene starts, the enemy starts to move towards the right. So what is probably going to happen is, because there is no other controls, we're just giving it a velocity in the right direction. As soon as the scene starts, it's going to fall down. It doesn't care about where it goes. It also solved the puzzle for us, thanks. Okay. It's going to keep going. So what we actually want is for the enemy to keep alternating on this platform only, like just moving like this. So if you remember the ground check thing we did with the player, the way we recognize if the player is on the ground or not, we're going to do the same thing with the enemy. But what we're going to do is we're going to move where the ground check is. So I'm going to change its gizmo as well. I'm going to keep it red because it's an enemy. And I'm going to keep the gizmo keep the game object actually a bit in front of the enemy. So we're going to check as soon as this circle is not on ground anymore, which means, when the enemy is somewhere here, it's not colliding with the ground anymore. We want it to switch its velocity. We basically want it to invert its velocity in the other direction, and we also want the enemy to flip, because when it flips, the ground check gizmo automatically comes here. So, and we have already written the whole code for everything. We already done this. So I'm just going to take the player flip function entirely. I'm just going to copy it. I'm going to close the script. I'm going to copy it here in the enemy controller script. I'm going to rename the function. I'm going to call it enemy flip. Facing right, vector3. Right, so we have a way of flipping the enemy. And now what we're going to do, we're going to take the ground check again. So this is the transform of a gizmo. This is this game object. And again, in the fixed update, we're gonna check, we're gonna write the same thing that we wrote in the player controller. So is grounded. If the enemy is on ground, check, draw a circle on this position of this radius and check if it's colliding with any object that belongs to this layer. If it's colliding, that means it's on the ground. If it isn't, then cool enough. Right. So I actually made the enemy controller script yesterday, so I'm just gonna copy that from there. This is what we have done till now, and this is the only thing that's missing, and a few more things I'm gonna. So the new thing is the does fall boolean. So what is does fall? So does fall is a public boolean. So what do we actually want a following enemy? We want the enemy to just go crazy. We want it to keep going in the direction that we wanted to. So for that, I have created another boolean for that is does fall. That means if the enemy is not on colliding with the ground, that means it's about to fall off, and we have set the condition that it shouldn't fall, only then invert its velocity and flip the enemy. Okay, and I'm just also going to add a few more things. I'm going to make this direction variable public because that will allow us to decide which enemy moves in which direction directly from the editor. We don't need to be concerned with coming back to the script. And I'm also going to do a check. I'm just going to say if direction.x is less than 0, which means the direction that we've given the player to move in is less than 0, I'm gonna call enemy flip. Right? You know what? I'm just okay. So I don't think we. So actually, I don't think we need the facing right boolean. So let's try out how our enemy works. Let's drag this a bit. Oh, there's an null error because we didn't assign something. Yes, we didn't assign the ground check. We didn't assign the layer, and we didn't even give it a radius. So I'm gonna give it a radius now. So. Okay, let's try it out now. Okay, the speed is just unrealistic, man. Okay, it's way too fast. I'm gonna reduce this. I'm gonna go with 8. So now what we've done is, by making the direction variable public, we can directly change it from here. So if I go -1, it starts its movement from left. And if I enable does fall, then it keeps falling. So what we need right now is, now we have an enemy. So now we want the enemy to do damage, right? So we want the enemy to be able to firstly destroy the player, and then it should also activate the game over screen, right? Because the game is over. So let's go to the player controller. Now the player controller has a box collider 2D. So like I told you, the inbuilt function that we created in fall catcher, we're gonna use a similar function like that, or the on collision enter 2D. So we're gonna go. You know what? I'm actually gonna do this in the enemy controller. Yes. So we're gonna do on collision enter 2D. Similarly, if other dot transform dot other dot game object dot tag is equal to player, that means if the enemy is colliding with the player, destroy other dot game object and say game over screen. So it's giving us an error right now because we haven't declared a variable by the name of game over screen. So I'm gonna declare it right here. Okay. Actually, it would have been better if I did that in the player controller, but okay, I'm not gonna be concerned about that right now. So I'm just gonna drag this over here. But the thing is, I think as soon as I prefab this, I'm gonna lose that reference, right? Yep. So we're gonna move that code to the player controller actually. I think that makes more sense. And we're gonna change this to if the other.gameObject.tag is the enemy. Destroy. First gonna set the game over screen to true, and then destroy this game object. I'm gonna create a public variable here. Cool. So now as you can see, the player should have a field for the game over screen. So we're gonna drag this game over screen right here, and we're gonna give the enemy a tag. Oh, it doesn't have an enemy tag. So we're gonna go on add tag. We're gonna create a tag by the name of enemy. Okay. We're gonna give Vishruth a tag of enemy. Cool. So now what should happen is as soon as we collide with the enemy, we so we're gonna prefab this again because we're gonna be adding a lot of enemies. So I think I'm gonna add another enemy right here. This is a bit difficult actually. Okay. Cool. So now what should happen as soon as I collide with the enemy is that my game gets over. Right, so what we have to do is we have to dodge. Okay. Wow. Huh. Yeah, but we had nowhere to go after that, so it's okay. So now we have an enemy, now we have a simple puzzle, now we have a lot of physics in our game. So now we're gonna go and move on to the final winning condition and the final level of let's say third of our game. So does anybody have any questions right now, or should we proceed? Okay, so I'm just gonna keep on making the level. I'm going to be also uploading the whole game that we made on GitHub so you guys can access the assets, and I'm going to take some time and I'm going to comment the code so anybody who reads it later can actually understand what's going on, because I know a lot of beginners are here. And I think the organizers also said they're going to be uploading the video later on, so I think that can also be helpful. Now I'm trying to create a ladder here. And there's one more thing I want to teach you guys is that it's the trigger colliders. So I'm going to teach that as well. Okay, let's go higher up. Cool. So what I want is I want 3 Vishruths to fall down from this ladder. Let's see. Place them here. I'm gonna change the direction to -1 and 0. Awesome. Why is this reference still here? I'm gonna clear that. Okay. Here is the game controller. What the hell? Okay.
Enemy controller पे भी है ना एक game object game over screen का.
Oh, I was opening up the wrong script. Okay. Cool. So now it should go away. Right, so I want these enemies to fall down. Right. Oh, I didn't enable dust falls. Okay, let's go for dust fall. Okay. Cool. Can we like freeze their constraints and I just want them moving in X. Okay. How does that happen? I don't think that would like work very well. I think it's just gonna mess with the system. No, it does. Okay. No, actually, I want them to move in Y as well. But I don't want them to fly like that. And increase the gravity scale a bit. Yeah, and that is better. Okay. But I don't want these. See, if these enemies just fall down, as soon as the game starts, the player won't ever see them, right? So we want these enemies to spawn and fall down when the player gets, let's say, somewhere around here. Okay, so I'm gonna disable these game objects for now. I'm gonna add a collider here. Okay, first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move all the platforms into a empty game object. So I'm gonna call it platforms because there's way too many platforms now. Cool. Okay, so now let's try to get to here. Oh, okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm gonna add a collider right here where the player is. I'm gonna call it a. We're still in play mode because I'm just testing around. I'm going to show you guys something. I'm gonna create a collider here, and what I'm going to do is when the player collides with this collider, I want it to activate these three game objects. Like we did with the fall catcher, we were destroying and enabling other game objects. Right now, we just wanted to enable game objects. But the thing is, if it's a normal collider, as soon as I hit it, I'm gonna get stopped here, right? And we don't want that. We are just using it sort of as a trigger. So I'm just gonna enable is trigger right here. So what you can see is I can now walk through the collider, but we can still catch the collision using a different function called on trigger enter. Okay, so I'm gonna come out of play mode. Let's create an empty game object. Let's add a box collider 2D to it. I'm gonna set the Z to 0. That doesn't make sense. Okay. So this is where I'm gonna put the trigger. I'm gonna enable the is trigger, and I'm gonna create a new script. I'm gonna call it. You know what? I'm gonna call it object enabler. For this, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a public array of game objects called objects to activate. So I'm going to use an inbuilt function called on trigger enter. I'm going to go if other tag is equal to player. Oh, sorry. I'm going to run a for loop for each of the objects in the list. And I'm gonna enable those objects one by one. Dot set active to true. So what this code basically does is it says that as soon as the player enters this trigger collider, I want all the objects that I mentioned in this public list, which will be exposed in the editor, and we can add elements to it from there. Enable those game objects. That is what we're saying. Okay. So I'm gonna add this. Let's rename this game object. Let's call it enemy trigger. And attach our object enable script to this. Now you see it has a public array of game objects to activate. So what I want to do is I want to drag this game object to here. Now as you see, as soon as I click it, it changes the inspector window to this corresponding game object. So either I can soft click and drag each of these objects here, or I'm gonna show you a trick. You can actually lock the inspector window by using this small lock right here. So I'm gonna lock the inspector window. I'm gonna select all 3 of the game objects that I want to enable, and I'm gonna drag them here. So what this is going to do, as soon as we hit this trigger, as soon as we pass this position, it's gonna activate these 3. Oh, so I gotta unlock the inspector window. It's going to activate these 3 enemies. They're going to move in the -1 direction. They're going to move towards the player at the speed of 8, and they're gonna keep falling. Yeah, and this is sort of the final challenge of our game. After this, we're gonna add the game winning condition. So let's see if we can actually get through it and pass it. Okay, so now we are not able to hear our own game. That's fine. Okay, just need to be patient. Okay. So you see that's the challenge of the surprise at the end. So okay, so I'm gonna change this up a bit. I'm gonna create some space for the player to run back if he wants to, because I don't think that we can time the jumps, because we don't know that how the enemies are actually coming to attack us. It's all a lot of random motion involved. So I'm just gonna take this platform, create a duplicate of it, and use the rotate tool, because apparently we haven't till now. So, yes. How about that? So something for the player to run back to, so we don't have to like essentially just stand there and get clobbered by those enemies. I'm gonna try it now. Oh great, this is bugged now. I can just move it a bit far. I think this should work. Let's try it out. Oh, we have to get to the end again. No. Oh. Okay. But we didn't even reach the trigger. Okay. Oh, the enemy trigger moved as well. Okay. Sorry, we didn't move the enemy trigger. We just moved the platforms. My bad. That was scary. Oh wow. Okay. So now let's add a final stop. I don't think the player is gonna be able to look so down. This is gonna be a sort of a leap of faith. So you know what? I'm gonna just reduce this platform, because why not? And there's a chance of him falling down. I wonder if there's a chance of falling down. Okay. Now let's try to create a winning flag. Okay, so I'm gonna take the square sprite. That's too bad. Okay, so we're gonna add. First I'm gonna rename this to flag. Sorry about this. We're gonna add another trigger here. Trigger collider. Add a box collider 2D. I'm sorry, this trigger. This is going to be used to enable the game winning screen. So let's make a game winning screen. I'm gonna go to paint again, and I think someone said green for victory, right? So let's go green, and we're gonna write with, I think white is okay. How do you even like increase this? Okay. What should be the message for winning? Yeah. Oh wow. Congrats.
GG.
GG, yes. GG. I can make G. Thanks, man. I was going to write congrats. That was going to be a massacre. Congrats. You. What? And again, similarly, press R. 2. So we're gonna save this file. I'm gonna call it game win screen. Same thing that we did with the game over screen. We're gonna go drag it first in the scene here. Give it an order of something like 10 so that it overlaps everything. Extend it so that it covers the whole screen. And again, make it a child of the main camera and disable it. So actually, I think we can use the object enabler script that we made to enable the enemies for this as well. So I'm just gonna call it win trigger. I'm gonna drag the object enabler script on it, and then the objects to activate, I'm gonna just drag the game win screen here. Cool. So I think now we should have a complete game. So let's test it out. You know what? We should actually like also reduce the speed of the player a bit. I think that is just me. Okay, I think the trigger to activate the enemies is still not in the right position, so we need to change that. But besides that, so what if I like fall down now? So, oh yes, I fall right on the flag. Amazing. So now a game is complete. Any questions now? Okay. So keep it here. Last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fix the enemy trigger position here. I'm just gonna drag it something like that. So let's test again once. Oh my word. This game is not for me, and I meant this game. Oh my god.
Reminds me of Light 'em Up.
Yes.
Same here.
Oh. But this can be made better, but okay, I'm gonna leave it to you guys and just okay. Okay, I also know like a small fix for okay, wait. This, as you can see, it like gets stuck on the edges. I'm gonna tell you guys a fix for that. It's gonna happen with everybody. Cool. Okay. Last thing, I'm just gonna create a fix for the. I'm gonna create a new physics material. Physics material is just something that allows us to give some more details to the physics, to the rigid body of any game object that we want to, how it's going to react to the physics. I'm gonna turn the friction to 0. Okay, I'm just gonna drag this here. So now the player won't get stuck on the edges. Yes. It's not getting stuck on the edges. Okay. So now let's just try to build this out. Okay. Anybody has any questions till now? Nothing. And very easy. Yeah. Let's build this. I'm gonna give it a. I'm gonna call this new folder. I'm gonna call it open our platform build. Select. Waiting for it to build. So now we're actually making a WebGL build, right? So this is HTML5. So you can very easily deploy it on any website you want. So what I really wanted to show you guys is, making games is one thing, but there's actually a very fun website called itch.io. This is a website that is very famous among game developers and allows you to upload games very easily.
Your voice is breaking, Sid. Siddharth's net dropped. He'll be back in a minute. He's not leaving. He's coming.
Really sorry guys, my net keeps dropping. Anyway, am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So I'm gonna share my screen again. So what I wanted to show you guys is this website. It's itch.io. And just hope I remember the password. Yes. Okay. So I already have a game up. I have a game uploaded. You can go and try to check it out. But it's very easy to actually go and upload a new game. So our game is still building. I'm gonna wait for it to finish up. But I just wanted to show you guys how you go. And so this is the kind of project. The kind of project we're going to select HTML because we made in the WebGL build, and you can select for donations and everything like that. But I don't think I think if you make like a really cool game, then you get to ask for these, or anybody is actually going to give you the donations. But you can still have it activated, and then you just have to upload your whole game in a zip file. You have to convert it into a zip file, and you have to upload it right here, and then you can deploy it, and everybody can play it from here. I'll just show you the game that I already have up. I'm just gonna leave this. Okay, where is my builds? Yes. So this is a project me and Ayush made in 2018. This is also a WebGL build, and as you can see, it's directly playable online. So I think that is the best way of learning and deploying whatever your games online. I think you just try to make small games and you can upload them on this website very easily, and your friends can play them, so you can get instant feedback, and you can just have some fun. So that's what I wanted to show you guys, because one thing is making games, and then it's like, what do we do with our games? Because it's not, you're not going to make a AAA game, you're not going to make GTA or The Witcher in your first try. You're not going to make something that's going to be on the Play Store in your first try. You're going to make a small little game. So these kind of sites are very, I think they incite a lot of confidence when people play your game. I think it's a really good feeling to have somebody else play your game and give you feedback. So I think I really want you guys to explore the site once you try it for your own. Okay, our game is still building. Okay, just gonna wait for that. I'm just gonna switch to teams now because I don't really have anything else. So if any questions right now, I'll take questions now. If you have any. If you don't, then it's fine as well. Okay. So how was the session? Did you guys understand everything, or was it? I mean, obviously you didn't get everything, but I hope when I upload the files, you guys can sort of. I'll share the links with the team, and they can forward it to all the attendees. And any feedback from your side, from the organizers?
Hello, Siddharth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hello.
The session was amazing, Siddharth. I wanted to tell one thing, that can we have some sort of 24-hour game jam that would be judged by you and Sughosh? We have some amazing.
Yeah, we are also waiting for this. We are so interesting.
And a lot of new students have also joined in first year, and they also wanted to explore this thing. And we have specialization as game jam, so it would be very amazing.
I mean, sure, but I don't know if I'll be that good a judge. But okay, sure, we can do that. I was actually more keen when you said game jam. I thought I was gonna get to participate. So
Yeah, maybe
you can participate,
Maybe you can
but
participate
cannot
as well as organize.
yeah, maybe we can do that. I think Ujjwal is always interested in game jams.
Yeah, I'm always up for game jams.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yes.
Sadbhai, Virendra this side.
Yes.
Sadbhai, first of all, thank you for coming on a very short notice, and we are very privileged to have you.
Oh.
And Sadbhai, really, it was very amazing session. Our faculties also joined this session, and the maximum number.
Okay.
Yeah. Jyotika Kruti ma'am and Shishti ma'am.
Okay.
They both
Good evening,
joined.
ma'am. Thank you very much, Virendra. It was really fun. I really hope that you guys, learned something, and I hope because I always try to focus that making games is simple. Like you can make, if you even know how to make some simple mechanics, you can always make simple games that are at least fun to play. I think okay, I think our build is ready, so let's try it. Now this is where I think nobody here uses Internet Explorer, right? This is where Internet Explorer is actually good because no other browser is going to allow you to play your HTML5 builds without actually hosting them on a server. Internet Explorer to allow plot content, yes. Oh wow, it's not even okay. Okay, it's not gonna allow me to play it. Okay, let's try another browser. Let's try Microsoft Edge. Yes. So as you can see, now we are playing this game that we just built in Unity in a browser, and this is how it's going to look when you upload it to itch.io. So yeah, let's just try to see if everything is working in the build. Yes. Okay. Awesome. So any questions? Or otherwise that I think that is the end of the session. I really enjoyed this. I think thank you to the IEEE, the gaming cell, and NCU for organizing this. It was a really fun. It was my first webinar. It was a really fun experience. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sid bhai, for coming.
Thank you, Viru.
Do you want to provide an email or something if anyone wants to contact you?
Yeah, sure. I think I'm gonna send that to you guys anyway. When I'll be sharing all the files and everything. So yeah, so I think, or I'll just. The thing is that with the email address, you guys even haven't enabled chat here, so I can't write it down.
Yeah, sorry.
So I'll share my details with you on.
Sid bhai,
yes.
you can
yes,
write it on a Word document. You can
Arre.
write it in a Word document and
Share
share the screen.
Yes.
Smart.
Everyone can capture the text.
Code, I just write it in VS Code here,
Yeah, you can write
21st
you.
century.
This is my email address. Oh wow. Okay, I did it. This is my email address. So you guys can contact me here, but I think I'm also approachable on Facebook or probably just. I think I was just email and Facebook is fine. Yeah. So I'm also going to be sharing all the files of the project that we have created with the organizing team, and I think they can share it with you guys. So
yes, sir, bhai.
Yeah.
I think we'll also share the video of this session. Will we, Virendra?
Awesome.
Yeah, we will be uploading the recording on both YouTube and will be emailing you all.
So awesome. That's great.
And we are looking forward for the game jam.
Same here.
Definitely. Keep me updated on that. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do that.
वैसे हो सकता है अभी वर्क फ्रॉम होम ही है, छुट्टियां भी हो गई तो कर सकते हैं.
Yep. Why not? I think we can even get. Yeah, it's like a work from home game jam. Yeah, sounds cool. You guys should take up the initiative. It's really nice. Okay. So what now? Is that it? So I should just. Okay.
तो नहीं कर रहा.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I think the organizing team should tell me, right? It's not not my call. It's just ended and go away. What are you gonna do about that? Okay.